Hello and welcome back to Future Forward by CallMiner, the series where we dig into enterprise conversation intelligence, CX automation and AI-powered customer engagement with people who actually live this stuff. So if you're in CX or contact centers, or you just care about how automation and analytics are reshaping industries like finance, healthcare, retail, telecoms and tech, then you're in exactly the right place. So today I am joined by Leigh Hopwood, CEO of the CCMA, the Contact Centre Management Association, who's been tracking the shift happening right now in automation and AI in customer service. And more importantly, what the next 24 months are going to look like. So Leigh, I will just throw out the big one first. When you look at enterprise contact centres over the next couple of years, what's the most disruptive trend that you think people still just aren't ready for?
Go on, hit me with a big question first. I love it. So without question, from all the rhetoric that I'm hearing, agentic AI, we're hearing it from the vendors, but agentic AI in self-service, it's big. I mean, just yesterday, I did a call using agentic AI, or at least I thought it was, and it just wasn't quite there. But and I think that's because self-service is fairly static. It's not really properly listening to the customer and adapting its approach, or actually properly listening to what's been said and adapting what it says, which was my experience, as I say, just yesterday. So I think agentic AI could be a massive step change. But as a contact center industry, I think we're not yet ready for it yet because there's a lot of legacy stuff.
And I guess also with customers, nothing stays very predictable for very long either. So expectations are bouncing all over the place. How does automation stay agile enough to keep up with those expectations?
Well, I think that's the tricky bit. I mean, if contact centers aren't, and you know, the leaders and the tech teams behind them are not moving with the AI, then it's staying up to date and up to speed with everything that's going on becomes harder. I talk about AI being potentially our third car crash. We used to have the IVR, still do. We have bots, and now we've got AI. What we didn't get right on the first two was keeping those systems up to date, making sure that they were continuously evolving as customer expectations change, as policies change, as the world changes around us. And that for me is the tricky part with regard to AI, is making sure that you are constantly evolving your AI platforms. You know, it is supposed to learn from itself, but it does need that training. So, you know, I think there's that level of agility is going to move from being well, that'd be nice, to actually you've got to have that level of agility in your processes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And meanwhile, AI-driven personalisation is then also scaling across industries. Where do you think that's going to show up first?
Oh, do you know what? I think it's already happening. Whether it's personalisation through proactive contact, because you know what a customer wants, needs, likes, their behaviours, their shopping histories, for example. I think that's already kind of there. Whether it is fully AI driven from an operational perspective is another story. So I think retail is probably going to get there quicker, in part because their margins are smaller, and therefore they are looking at trying to drive greater operational efficiencies. But over the next couple of years, I think we're going to see it landing in places that people just simply don't expect. I think we'll see it even more so in finance, more so in healthcare, and why not in government services? You know, we know that there are councils in the UK that are implementing AI to help their citizens, to help their residents, and it is making a really, really big difference. I think that the difference here is, what do we mean by personalisation? It's not personalisation because I called you Alex. It's personalisation because actually I've seen what you've done. I've seen where you're at. I've seen what you've called about. I've seen what you like, what you don't like. I've seen your behaviours, and therefore the response is much more appropriate. For if you're grumpy, then we can, you know, we respond more empathetically. If you're happy, then we respond really happy. You know, it's there's so many different ways that it can be just so much more personalized.
Yeah, and if companies do want this AI first CX, what do they have to change on the inside of their organizations?
Do you know what? That's so hard. I mean, so many of UK businesses have invested in legacy systems. So there's the systems that you've got to be looking at, and looking at, you know, future roadmaps. You've got one of the things that we're talking quite a lot about at the moment is mindset. Making sure that you've got a change mindset, a growth mindset, so that everybody in the operation, from very top echelons of seniority all the way down to the front line, you're looking at how you can continue to innovate. But within all of that structure, making sure that your IT teams are talking to operations, are talking to the CX teams, are talking to those that are talking to customers all the time. All of those functions need to be working together, whether that is from the integration, from going in the same direction, having that strategy, but also all of your data governance behind it. All of those different functions have different sets of data. And we know that that data and that knowledge is what drives great AI experiences, but there's so much that needs to be done under the surface, if you like, and investment. What we do know is that this is going to cost. The ROI could be phenomenal. We know that, but if we get it wrong as an industry, if we don't make sure that we are taking the steps to go through this shift in the right way, then I think it could be painful.
And I think that the point you made about legacy systems is really crucial. I think a lot of organizations are in very different places when it comes to adopting newer technologies, AI in particular. So if someone's watching this and they're thinking, we don't have most of this in place yet, what's the mindset that they need to adopt?
So over the last 3 years, we've been talking about test and try, test and learn, small AI pilots, so you can prove its value. I think where we are now is that you do need to have a much broader view. Now you've done that testing and learning, and you now know where it can add value into your organization. I think there is a need to stop thinking about it in that way, and we need to start looking at it in a much more holistic way. There's no doubt AI is going to be core in contact center operations, in how we interact with customers, how we surface data and insights, and in part because consumers expect it. We're now using AI in our day-to-day lives, you know, so consumers expect it, and therefore, as an industry, we need to be moving with what consumers want and expect. But I think really crucially is that if you haven't moved yet, you've actually got an opportunity to get the foundations right and make sure that you're learning from everybody else that has moved. Get those foundations in place, that governance, that management system in place, making sure you've got the structure in place, you've got the skills in place, because there are more skills out there now. So there's so much learning that those that have not moved yet can take on board, so that they could potentially leapfrog those that were the early adopters.
Yeah, it almost makes me think of the tortoise and the hare, right? It's not always the fastest that wins. So really, really great points. All right, I want to hear from people watching. Which of these trends would be hardest for your contact center to implement, and what would happen if a competitor got there first? Let's keep the conversation going, and I will see you next time on Future Forward. Leigh, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day, everybody.